The Gilded Age was a time of greed, racism, and stereotypes. The rich were very greedy and took all the money for themselves. They just got richer and richer, while the poor just got poorer and poorer because of all the money the rich gained through their businesses. The Gilded Age was considered to be glittering on the surface, but corrupt underneath. The people of this time thought it was the time of growth because slavery had ended, immigration laws were passed, and the government began to prosper. The rich's lack of understanding of the poor's experiences created conflict between the rich and poor. Irish immigrants came to America during the potato famine in search of jobs in order to survive. The people in America did not like this and thought that the Irish were taking the only jobs that they had. But in reality, the Irish were taking the jobs that no one else wanted. Anger amongst racial groups rose, and people started creating caricatures about the Irish to make fun of them and support stereotypes. The Irish were considered drunks and looked like monkeys with their flat nose, low forehead, big lips, and mouths. This is a photo of a large Irish man sitting on top of big barrels of different types of food. He also has a weapon, such as the knife, in his hands. This shows that Irish people were considered greedy and dangerous. This picture shows an Irish man sitting on top of a large barrel of gunpowder. He has a gun in one hand and alcohol in the other. This photo makes Irish people look dangerous, careless, and scary. It also supports the stereotype of all Irishmen looking like monkeys. All of these pictures show how society has a deformed conscience. People thought it was right to create these pictures and post them around to make fun of the Irish people. Caricatures supported stereotypes about African Americans during the Gilded Age. There are many caricatures that portray African Americans as lazy, ignorant, angry, violent, unattractive, and many other negative characteristics. This word was used as hate towards African Americans. It was combined with regular English words to mean racist and demeaning things. For example, this means leaving a small tip or no tip at all in a restaurant. This photo shows an African American who looks dirty with ripped clothing and worn out shoes. The body of this person is also oddly shaped, making the person look abnormal. This is supporting the stereotypes of African Americans being poor, uneducated, and dirty. This picture also supports stereotypes about African Americans. The woman in the front has torn clothing, her hair is not done, and she has no shoes on. She also looks like she is dancing around erratically. Blackface was a show where white people would cover themselves with burnt cork to make them look like they were African American. They would make their lips look big and wear clothes that were worn down and looked dirty to represent what they considered an African American to look like. This supported the stereotypes about African Americans that still exist today. During one of the shows called Vernon and Ryan, they transformed themselves into an African American on stage in front of an audience by turning their face black, putting on a wig, and dressing as clowns. As soon as they put on the makeup, they started acting crazy and talking like they were uneducated. This was a stereotype making African Americans look crazy and dumb. This show could not help someone keep a sound heart in the face of society's deformed conscience. It supports racism and stereotypes towards African Americans. Many people would come to see it live and not think twice about how racist the show actually was. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is about a boy named Huck who struggles to maintain a sound heart in the face of society's deformed conscience. He goes to live with two women who try to change him and make him a proper boy, which he doesn't like. Eventually, his alcoholic father comes back into his life after everyone thought that he was dead. His father abuses him and only uses him to get money to buy alcohol, which in the end, he realizes that Huck doesn't even have the money. Huck runs away and unexpectedly meets up with a runaway slave named Jim, whom he knew from the woman's house. They struggle to stay out of the public's eye and not get caught. If they did, Jim would have to go back to being a slave and maybe sold to New Orleans. Huck would be forced to go back to live with his abusive father that puts him down all the time. Huck kept a sound heart by not turning in Jim right when he had found out that he had run away. Huck did not let the widow Douglas, Miss Watson, or his father negatively affect his decision. He kept to his own morals and thought of Jim as his equal and not as a slave. Chapter 6 of Huck Finn shows a stereotype about Irish people. Pap Finn, an Irish man, comes home drunk and a mess and beats Huck. This shows the stereotype about Irish people being drunk and violent. Also in Chapter 6, Pap Finn shows us how racist he is when he talks about how the government supports the African Americans more than they support the white people. He also says he will never vote again if he sees a black person voting. In Chapter 15, Huck and Jim get separated but eventually find each other again. Huck messes around with Jim and tells him that it was all a dream and Huck never left him. When Jim realizes that Huck lied, he got really mad. When Huck notices that he hurt Jim's feelings, he apologizes because he feels for him and he considers him his equal. I think that this project connects to our magnet standard of diversity. In the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, it is not just about one race. Huck and his father are Irish, and Jim the runaway slave is African American. There are also different religious beliefs. When Huck lived with the widow Douglas and Miss Watson, he was taught about Christianity. Pap Finn told Huck that he did not believe in education or religion. During the Gilded Age, many different ideas, races, and perspectives were presented. African Americans, whites, Irish, and even Asians all lived in this wonderful place called America. Just like many different races all come together and receive an education as CTRA. In Ferguson, Missouri, an unarmed black teenager named Michael Brown was shot and killed by a white police officer named Darren Wilson. This caused riots because everyone thought that the police officer only shot Michael because he was black. These riots occurred because people were angry about what had happened to Michael and how it went down. Many people began having peaceful protests that did not only occur in Missouri but all over the United States. This shows a sound heart in the face of society's deformed conscience. Even though people were angry about what had happened, they didn't show it and riot like the others.